Welcome into WeAreSC. Welcome into Five Things. This is Erik McKinney, joined by Katz and Marc Kulkin. Guys, we are in Boulder. We are talking about USC's 48-41 win against Colorado. Didn't feel like we'd be saying those numbers about halfway through this one, but that's where we are. So we're going to get into, again, our five things. We're going to start right away with our first thing. As always, player of the game. Greg, going to start with you. Your player of the game in this one.
I'll keep it short. Caleb Williams, just give him the second Heisman Trophy and get it over with. He established himself on national television to say, if there's anybody better than me, you better come up with some good evidence. And more power to him. He played a great game. Had a costly interception, though, that kind of just really was at the wrong time to have it happen, but it happened. But without him, they wouldn't even have scored 48 points. But I'll leave that for others to discuss.
Marc, your player of the game.
Yeah, I think it's going to be unanimous. It's going to be Caleb Williams. Look, 30 or 40 passing, 403 yards, 6 touchdowns. He was the offense today. For whatever reason, Lincoln Riley didn't feel like the running game was going to work. So we're going to give it to Caleb Williams. Put it on his shoulders and hope the defense can get enough stops so Caleb Williams can score one more touchdown. I don't want to belabor it any longer than that.
Yeah, I mean, it's Caleb, right? And should make mention of Taj Washington. He had a 100-yard game, 117 yards on 8 catches. And really, that touchdown he had is a great catch. That ball's kind of coming over from behind him. He turns around, goes up, catches sort of the back of the ball as he's fully extended, reaching up, and then takes it for a touchdown. So Brendan Rice had a couple touchdowns, although he pointed to 2 balls that he thinks he should have caught and didn't come down with. But it's Caleb Williams. There was one poor decision, and I think the throw was okay. Mario Williams was open. He passed up a couple guys underneath that were very open, that could have just kept moving the ball down. The decision to throw to Mario, I don't think is bad. The decision to throw on the run without kind of getting set and really letting it go, it came up way short, and that was an interception. And it's really tough because you want to just sort of, yeah, you made one mistake in a game, but when your defense, and we'll get to this, I'm sure, when your defense is playing that way and finishing the game that way, any mistake made by the offense is massive. But you don't want to take away from what he did in that one, which is another game where USC doesn't come close to winning without him doing Caleb Williams type stuff when he has the ball. So 403 passing yards, 6 touchdowns, his first interception of the year. But again, a big game for Caleb Williams in that one. Greg, back to you, going to our second thing, the play of the game. What did you have there for the play of the game?
I had a lot of plays of the game, especially when it was in the fourth quarter, but as simplistic as this may sound, I came to the conclusion the play of the game was Michael Jackson III recovering the onside kick. I said, you know what, that sealed it. Before I was going to say earlier, Taj Washington in the second quarter, gave him that 21-0 cushion. And I said, okay, now that's what we're looking for, right? And then, of course, the simple fact is that in the first half, SC won 34-14. In the second half, unbelievable that Colorado won 27-14. But in the end, it's the bottom line final score. But really, when it got down to the onside kick, it seemed almost as though, if the upset's going to happen, this is it. They got a fortuitous bounce. They went right into Michael Jackson's hands. And, one thing I will never understand, and then I pass the baton here to Marc, is why in the world were they running the ball like Colorado at the end? Like, are you trying to run the clock out? I'm kind of anxious to see what Prime Time thought of that strategy.
Marc, your play of the game in this one.
I'm going to stay on special teams, and I don't know how much of effect it had on the actual game, but I'm only doing it because I said it was going to happen, and that was when Eric Gentry blocked the punt. So let's give a hand to special teams. They look good in the first half. and they recovered the onside kick when they needed to. So.
Yeah, I'm with you, Greg. If Colorado gets that onside kick, I mean, they're scoring, right? They're scoring a touchdown. The way that they had been moving, absolutely. To go with another one, I'll go back a couple, and what should have been the play of the game, what should have ended it right there, was the Dejon Benton sack on 4th down, right? That was one play where the defense came up with what they needed to do, and you think, okay, that's it. That's going to end it. And then you had the missed field goal, and then the touchdown drive. But that was a big one, because at that point there was still enough time on the clock, it felt like, where if SC does not get this stop, things are going to get really, really dicey at the end. Let's go to the third thing. Greg, back to you here. This may be short or it may be long here. The expectation that you had coming into this one that was met in this game.
My expectations were that it was going to be high scoring. I didn't think it was going to be high scoring on both sides. And so the expectation was met that SC was high scoring. My expectation was not originally that Colorado would also be high scoring. And there is a real bottom line to this. Maybe that'll transcend to the next question.
Mark, your expectation coming in that was met?
That they were going to come into a big game environment, and they did, and they were going to score a lot of points, and they didn't score quite as many as I thought they would. So that's all.
My expectation was that Caleb Williams was going to put on a show, and he did. He had a quarterback opposite him that was getting a ton of attention. You knew that he wanted to come out and play really, really well. He did. Shedeur Sanders, I thought, stepped up to the occasion too, played really well. And I think the expectation I had too was that they would be better in terms of playing on the road, and that the crowd wouldn't factor into it as much. You didn't see quite as much, but boy, you really would have wanted to see more in terms of that, controlling the crowd and putting a game away when road life gets far more difficult going forward here at this point. So that transitioned into a little bit of a surprise. Let's go fully into our fourth thing now. Greg, your surprise from this one?
My surprise is that SC couldn't put him away when they had him. The surprise was, as I was kind of maybe wishful thinking, that I thought in the first half the defense played reasonably well, was tackling in space, all seemed well. And then the second half came, and that was a surprise for me, that they just collapsed. I mean, they just collapsed in every way. I think the pass rush, which was the difference in the Oregon game against Colorado, where Oregon got to Sanders a number of times. I think SC might have, ran out of gas a little bit from the early morning wake up to maybe energy, high altitude, but something changed. Maybe it was Colorado taking a look at the SC defense and figuring it out. One thing I do know is the emotion of Colorado really jumped up as they kept getting closer, and that is an energy boost far more than Gatorade can provide, I can tell you that. So really disappointing for me. It's kind of a disappointing surprise.
Mark, you got another disappointing surprise?
Of course I do.
Why would you even ask a question like that, Erik? You know that was coming. You served up a softball on that one.
I'm actually surprised on two things. One, how easily and how well Colorado ran the ball, and how poorly USC ran the ball. And they literally gave up running the ball. And I asked Lincoln Riley about this question point blank after the game. Every team that Colorado has played this year, they have struggled to run the ball up until this game. Why? And then why did you abandon the running game? Offensive line didn't have a good game. That's the answer. So I guess that's my surprise, is why is the offensive line struggling against a team like Colorado who can't stop the run either?
Yes. I mean, that was it for me. The run game on both sides. Colorado could not stop the run against Oregon, and USC seemed like they got whatever they wanted on the ground against Arizona State. it sure felt like, again, it's tough to say it like right after you watch without going back and watching. It just felt like the offensive line for USC kind of got beat up a little bit, and that there were Colorado defenders all over. There were not those kind of gaping holes that USC had been able to create against other teams. And that, I think, was a surprise. The in-game surprise is absolutely what you guys are talking about. When you run out to a 41-14, and credit to the fans, they stayed, they were loud. It was 41-14. It felt like it was 10-7 at that point with kind of what the crowd was doing. But not being, if you say that you're a championship team and you want to go play these games and win these games, you cannot fold like that. It does not matter what the opponent was doing on the road. You have to put that game away. And that, in terms of in-game, was an absolute shock that they could not do that. And here we go. The biggest takeaway from this one, Greg, what do you have as the biggest takeaway?
That the worst is yet to come, because I got the feeling for the first time this season that it's the SC offense that can't make a mistake, because if they do and they don't score, knowing what's in front of them, Notre Dame, Oregon, Washington, those three teams had to be licking their chops if they were watching this game. So my feeling is that every possession matters. Every offensive turnover is going to matter. And boy, if you score 48 points and you're still in jeopardy of losing, that's a terrible sign. I'm also concerned, taking away just how the country viewed this at the start. It was like, wow, look at SC, man. They are really great. And in the second half, what is everybody looking at? What a great comeback by Colorado. Their future's bright. And it really solidifies the takeaway that Lincoln Riley's perception is he's a great offensive coach, great quarterback guru, definitely knows what he's doing on offense. The points indicate that. But defensively, I hate to sound like an old senior citizen. It reminds me of Don Coryell with the old San Diego Chargers when it was all offense and the defense didn't matter. We'll just outscore them. Well, you're not going to outscore some of these teams you're going to be playing, and you got a real issue there. So that's going to be the intrigue going forward. That's my takeaway.
Mark, your takeaway from this one?
That we're watching the same issues that we saw last year transpire, and they're not getting better. I don't think I need to add anything onto that. Everybody watched the same game. We are almost at the halfway point of this season, which is supposed to be a championship caliber level team. And in some aspects, they're actually regressing, because this win actually feels worse than last week's win, which shouldn't have felt as bad as it did. I mean, like you said, when you're up 41-14, final score can't be 48-41. It can't.
Yeah, my biggest takeaway is that it feels like there are no answers defensively. And this is it. This is what is going to be ridden out for the rest of the season. And if you can win games 48-41, you're going to try to do that. But Bryson Shaw, and to Bryson Shaw's credit, absolutely. He sat up there and he said, it's us. It's us. He said, and I know that people are going to take this however they want to take it. He said, we're being put in the right positions. The play calls are fine. We're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. When we're asked to do X, we're doing Y, right? And that was a big thing of what he said, which then it becomes, okay, so if they can't do those things, stop continually asking them to do those things. And that's where you've got this disconnect. But the takeaway is that USC has not been able to find an answer defensively for the season, and then could not find an answer defensively in this one. And boy, it's getting to crunch time to where you're going to get bit if you don't have that. I just don't. You've got Arizona coming up, and then you go to Notre Dame, and it gets really difficult really quickly. The expectations for these next ones can't be, oh, USC's defense will get it together and come out and play well. I think that we're seeing what the USC defense has this season. And so if they haven't been able to come up with an answer at this point, it's extremely concerning at this idea that potentially they could come up with an answer as we go. There were a couple stops, right? You made a couple stops, you got the ball back, you had the ball offensively enough to win the game. It feels like that's going to have to be the game plan. And it was what we said before the season started, and you hoped it wouldn't get there. We're there, and we'll see if it changes, but I don't think there's any reason to say, yeah, next week they're going to lock it up defensively and they're going to do that. You need a couple individual plays. You need the ball back. It's not a great place to be when you've got some of these offenses coming up, but it sure feels like that's where USC is right now as they come away again, a 48-41 win against Colorado, where they were outscored 14-0 in the fourth quarter. Actually, the 564 total yards, I don't know if I have to say that again, 564 total yards for Colorado. That's 2 more than Utah had in that regular season game last year. Utah had 562 in that one. So I believe that's the most that USC's allowed under Lincoln Riley and Alex Grinch since he's been here. So coaches and players said they'll take the win and move forward. It certainly counts as a win, but a lot of questions still and a ton of concerns coming out of this one. But that's our look at our 5 things for, again, USC's 48-41 win against Colorado. For Greg Katz, for Marc Kulkin, this is Erik McKinney. Thanks for watching WeAreSC. Thanks for tuning in to 5 Things.